Welcome on in, ladies. Welcome in to Lost in Our 40s, a podcast by women for women where we discuss everyday issues. Welcome in, gorgeous. Today I'm in a hurry to get to it. We're talking about the media and how it affects us at a subconscious level. I have a story. Yesterday, I was going through a book. It was called Anna et l'enfant vieillard. So it was in French, and it was about the translation is Anna and the old child. Yeah, something like that. When I got it, I thought it was going to be something like about Benjamin Button, because I love that movie. It has always made such an impression on me. I thought it was so interesting how their lives were going in different directions from a time perspective. So when I saw that title, that's what I thought it was about. It wasn't. Yeah. It was about trauma. As it turns out, even the books I read are now being drawn from trauma. So it was about a mother whose son um, goes into the drug scene. He goes through a traumatic event when he's in his early 20s. And beyond that, he just then starts, he had tried with experimented with weed and the like, but then after that he goes into a heavy drug kind of situation, to the extent that he's living out on the streets. And so it's a story from the mother's perspective of what living with that is like, and how sometimes she doesn't know if he's alive. She doesn't know. He calls her from time to time, and she really wants to help him, but has been told by her therapist that any money she gives him goes towards drugs, so that she needs to cut it off from that perspective. And it's about the relationship and the hope she has that he would come out of it. So I won't spoil it for you. It's an interesting story. But the thing is that it was sad. It was sad. It was very interesting. I enjoyed it. It was instructive. It was, is that the word? It gave, it painted it really nicely from the dimension of the parent and what they are going through. Her attempts to save, her willingness to save. She had put her life on hold, so there's a lot going on there. And it was an enjoyable book. Yes, but it was sad. And the thing I did is that immediately after I finished it, even while I was going through it, I noticed that my mood had gone down. I wasn't feeling quite myself. So immediately after finishing it, I turned on Beyonce. Beyonce Renaissance. And she has a couple of songs. She has very good songs there. And one of them is actually called Energy, because I felt that my energy had gone down, and I was trying then to boost up my energy. I can't sing it, but it's energy, something like that. And it's really, really cool. And then that and a couple of more songs from the album then raised up my spirits. And that's what we're here to talk about today. So it's both the impact of the media we consume, um how to put it, it's the impact of the media we consume uncalculatedly, and how we can also calculate to get certain feelings from directing ourselves into certain media. Yes. So we take, so that was an example. So books, stories, that, because I love books and I wouldn't discourage anyone from reading ever, ever. But there was a book I was reading. I remember when I was, it was many, many, many years ago. And I'm trying to remember, because I remember I used to read it on my commute. So I don't know if it was my commute to school or my commute to work. So I used to read anyway as some book. And then I noticed, because I'd in the morning on my way, I'd get in, I'd open it up and start reading it. And every day would start off down. And it took me a little time, but then I eventually realized that it is this book. It's this book that's getting me into this super low mood. And when I realized that, I was like, get away from me, this. I almost said, Rishwa, get away from me. So, yeah, I actually stopped reading that book immediately. And my mood after that came up. It was about 9/11. It's an acclaimed book, a New York Times bestselling book. And I can't remember the title now, but that was the impact it had on me. And because of that, then I chose not to read it. I chose my energy. I chose that I would want my energy levels to go up. And it's interesting that I noticed it even then. I haven't thought of that in a long time, but that I noticed it then is useful, because that's also what we're talking about. It's the point of noticing these things. So yesterday, yes, I noticed it even while I was going through the book, and I immediately, after finishing the last word, then went directly into something that I expected to raise, and I danced. I love to dance, so I danced along to Beyonce, and that made me feel better. And interestingly, to finish off that story, after the album had played, Renaissance, it then went to some songs Beyonce had sung about being cheated on. I forget the name of that album. And then immediately that I realized that that's the direction we were going to, I switched off the music, because that will not raise my energy level. That will then get me back to thinking about negativity, that men cheat. Why did he have to do this to her? That kind of thing. And that is the awareness that we need in dealing with media. So that was music. The other thing is TV. TV is a big one, because it's very comfortable to get lost in a series, to get lost in TV. It takes up time, it takes away the pressure from us. We don't have to think about whatever's going on in our minds. We can do whatever it is, we can switch off to some extent and just get lost in the world that the movies or the TV series has set up for us. And here we kind of put our consciousness in the hands of other people. Once upon a time, many, many, many years ago, was that the 80s, where there used to be this whole drama around music that used to be, or words that used to be recorded backwards in music, such that if you play the songs backwards, you'd find certain messaging that was written there. I don't know how true or not it was, and it was in the news, at that time, very largely. It was a big dramatic thing. And the point that was raised even then was that even the things that you do not hear in the song, your mind picks up at a subconscious level. And what they were saying is that even if it is recorded backwards, our minds are these supercomputers that pick things up. So to take it back to the series, if there's anything there that is a message that the creators want to push, and it doesn't even have to be nefarious, it can be something normal. Think of it like advertising, that there's something that they want to advertise. So it would be like a shot. Every so often you'd find the product. I don't have a product near me, a cup or a pen. Maybe there's a certain brand of pen that they want to promote in the market. So whenever there is an office scene, there is a second or two passed on that pen. And you don't consciously recognize it, but before you know it, you find yourself buying the pen. And you just think that it's from your own thought process. You think that you wanted the pen and therefore you went to buy it. So it's just something to be conscious of. And with TV, because for me, it's how I think about all the messaging I got when I grew up. A lot of it was from TV. So messaging, whether it be about women being inferior or about, name it, any kind of anything that you think society has been pushing out as a concept, it's very easy for TV to be the one that sells it through. I have a very good example for you. So, after the bombings in the US, actually the 9/11 bombings, there was a period when TV shows had a lot of people who looked a particular kind of way. So this would be the Arabs, people who, and they weren't necessarily Arabs. They had a particular look that they'd have the beard, they'd have their hair covered, they'd have that kind of thing. And all these shows, all these police shows, at the time I was a big fan of 24. All these police shows had a lot of terrorist acts that portrayed such people being the terrorists. And that is messaging. That is messaging. They say that art imitates life, but sometimes life imitates art, meaning it goes the other way around. If you've gotten so much information from the TV about a certain group of people being dangerous, you get to believe it. You get to believe it without your knowing. And that's what would happen. That's how the unconscious bias comes out, because you'd be somewhere and then you just start feeling uncomfortable because of the kind of people who are around you. And it is because of some messaging that you got from places that you were not consciously aware were pushing messaging. And it's not even necessarily, I should point out, it's not necessarily the intention of the producers of these programs to pass that message along. But this is something that the market is consuming. Yes. And it's again that is the market consuming it because it has been created? Is it being created because the market is consuming it? So it becomes that kind of loop. And that's what we see actually nowadays with social media. These rabbit holes that people fall into, that you click on one particular link and the algorithm will now show you nothing else. You'll just keep seeing things. If you thought that maybe cups should be black, then you'll just be getting contents about black cups and about how cups which are not black do not hold the liquid as well, things like that. So it creates it pushes to you the kind of information that supports a particular line of thought, whether or not that line of thought is true, because it's just there's content online about everything. So you'd be able to get content in that particular area. And the danger there that we saw, again, I'd go back to the US example with or I won't even go to the US example. Sorry. I'll just say the danger there that you might have seen in different areas is that it can create a very close-minded set of people who then see things in one particular direction and expect that the whole world sees things the way they do. And then it becomes very polarizing, because then your expectation is that what you have been seeing in the media you consume is true. And there is only one truth, your truth. And hopefully we all know that that is not the case. Different things can be true at the same time. There's the importance of perspective, and that we can lose. So that was a long one on TV shows. And I haven't even touched on things like The Bachelor and things like that. There are these shows that, and even now at least it's both ways. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but these shows that portray relationships in a light that is not necessarily healthy. If you have a group of X number of people throwing themselves for one person, what does that tell you about relationships generally? It's not often that we think of those perspectives. Sorry, when we turn to these shows, we are just there for entertainment. Like one I used to like very much was Married at First Sight. Yeah, it's this program about people who get married. There's some coaches who put them together and they get married on the day that they meet, and then after that it's a story about the drama that surrounds the relationship, and they get to choose whether or not they want to stay together. So again, very entertaining. But what messaging is there? What am I learning? What am I picking up? First of all, there's the fact that there's quite a number of people who audition for these shows. And is that teaching me that love is hard to come by, that you need to go onto a show to be able to find a relationship where you shall marry someone even before you meet them? Is it teaching me that courtship is unnecessary because there's some relationships that work, there's some relationships that don't? Is it teaching me that, what is it teaching me? That's the point. There are very many things that you can draw from. And the point is not even that they're right or wrong. The point is that these are ideas that you get into your head without necessarily realizing that you've opened the door, because they're going directly, they're going into the subconscious, being cataloged somewhere in your mind, and before you know it, you have a belief that did not come from you. Mm. Another super important area is the news. The news can be terribly dramatic. I remember earlier this year, a friend of mine and I, we traveled to the US, and there were tornado warnings in a state that we would be visiting. And it was all over the news. It was on and on and on and on. And frankly, it was playing we were staying in a hotel, and it was playing there for like 3 hours, talking about, oh, how it goes, these horrible scenes from previous disasters, and how terrible it was, and how people lost property. And so we were getting worried. We were visitors, we don't live there. So we were getting worried, and we were getting very concerned. So those are our vibrations going down, because we're meant to be going there. Are we going to be safe? Is this okay? So digging, we were listening to this until at some point I heard someone say within the those newscasters. So it was meant to hit on that day, and if it hit on that day, it would last for 45 minutes. And I said, hold on. First of all, we've been listening to 3 hours about a story that, if it materializes, would last for 45 minutes. How does that add up? How is that tally? Yes, and we'd be traveling there the next day. So if it did come, it wouldn't be um it, it 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 wouldn't last for more than 45 minutes. It would come that day. By the time we're going, more likely than not, it would be done, and we'd be able to watch after and figure out whether or not we can travel. So with that, my friend and I had the conversation, and we were thinking, this is really um unnecessary drama. And as it turned out, what happened was just heavy rains. So there were very, very heavy rains, but there wasn't a tornado. So all this worrying, and I think that news cycle had started at the beginning of the day. So a full day of churning of negativity for everybody watching, because this was on CNN. So it wasn't so much local news. It was on CNN. So in that, it wasn't just that, it wasn't like a local news channel in that state. It was something that was available everywhere. And that made me really think how first of all, bad news is entertaining, because that must be the reason that it has been put out there. And I'm not highlighting CNN as being as being a bad seed or playing something wrong, because I'm sure all the news channels had it. It's just so happened to be the channel we were watching. But bad news then seems to be something that really captivates and gathers people's attention. And for us, it was because of that. We were worried. What could happen? We needed to be in the know. We needed to be informed. So there's someone who says, it was Stephen King in one book. Oh, I hope I get this right. He was talking about how people stop to slow down at the scene of an accident. And the question he had was whether it was not so much because we're concerned about whether people are okay, but there's some kind of human attraction to these scenes which are a little more on the negative. So where there's something that has happened, an incredible scene, and you'll see it. People slow down. People want to see what happened. Yeah. And so there is maybe that attraction from a human perspective to just stay a little longer and watch and see what these sad things that are happening to other people far away. And for that, I tie it into COVID. The news cycle during COVID was rather dramatic. We'd have these numbers being called out. So always just a calling out of numbers of people who've died, that in such and such a period, this was the death toll, this is what has happened. That's not encouraging. So it became like the whole world. It was like a downer for the whole world, who are constantly, all of us were just constantly in this news cycle. And getting away from it was difficult, because turning on the TV, there'd probably be breaking news about it. So this is another thing that it really, really brings down the vibe. I wanted to mention as well advertisements. I've mentioned it in the context of TV shows, but advertisements, I noticed this. I I don't follow. I happened to watch something online where there was a lady who was talking about how we might end up spending money that we had no intention of spending. And she said that the first thing you need to do is to block all those emails and text messages that come from these outlets where you've purchased things. Because what they do is they'll just send you a message and tell you about a wonderful sale that is happening then. And before you know it, because it's such a wonderful sale, you've been attracted. And maybe you end up buying something that you wouldn't have bought ever, other than the fact that you keep getting these recurring messages from these entities telling you what's going on there. So she said the clever thing to do, delete them, just delete them after you've bought whatever because sometimes they do require your like email address. Don't engage with them anymore. Oh, hold on, I need to take this, just a second. There, I have a delivery, so I needed to open the door. And that ties in nicely. This is something that I wanted to buy. But it might have been what's the word, I might have bought more because of the sales in the Black Week. So Black Friday and that week, because that's the season we are in here. So this is the exact example of what I'm talking about. So just to know that the point that I had there was just to know that this is some kind of, even when watching TV, listening to radio, listening to whatever it is, wherever there is content, wherever there is a break in the content for advertisement, it hits us, whether or not we want it. Even if it's on YouTube and you're trying to skip over, and sometimes it won't let you, then within that period, there's something that you'll end up watching. And your attention is super, super, super important, because with your attention is where you end up, your attention is like your life force, I want to say. Your attention is all you have. So if your attention is going to places that you haven't consciously decided you want to take it to, it is like your energy is being sapped from you. So your attention is something you really need to guard very, very closely, and not allow this diffusion through the techniques. And again, it's the media. Sometimes it is intended, sometimes it is not. We've talked about music and coming back up, but I should mention music also in dragging you down. Once upon a time, I had a friend who came to visit me. And he, I put on some music and he was listening to it and he said, "Man, your music is so dark. You listen to such sad songs." And I hadn't realized it at the time. This was just my playlist and it's just the kind of music that I enjoyed. But after he left, I thought about it and I listened again to the songs that I listened to. And that was exactly true. And this was at a point in my life when I was not feeling so uplifted and great. So the music that it wasn't, the music I was listening to was not the reason why I was sad, but it did not lift me out of that sad circumstances. It there were probably other weights that kept me there, but this then was just adding onto the load that was making my energy level super low. So with music, there's also just so much messaging. There's all these songs, or there's all these videos and songs that depict women in certain ways which are less than wholesome. And we might like the song, you might like the artist, but it's important to take some conscious thought to the impact of what we are listening to is having on us. Again, you might think that at a logical level, yes, this is something that I can deal with. I understand that what they're saying is wrong, but it has such a catchy beat, I'll still listen to it. The messaging still gets through. And if it's a song about she's a hoe, something along those lines, you get the message that women are not trustworthy. So you as a woman are not trustworthy. Men don't trust you. Or you get the message that you're not worth much. And very subtle, but there. And this, remember that your mind is a supercomputer. So just categorizing all these things that you feed it. So instead of consuming things that are dragging you down, consume things that lift you up. Consume, and that's what I've been doing today. Today I've been collating a playlist, and it's on Spotify. I've called it Lost in Our Footies. I am not done with it yet, but go look for it at some point. But a playlist of high vibe feminine energy music. So music that sings and speaks to women's power. And it's even just I get uplifted even just thinking about it, because the messaging there is so strong, and it's women who I've a lot of the artists I didn't really know before, because I was just not searching. It's just a whole work of really really searching and trying to get it, and you just have messaging of things that I actually believe that, and I hear other people singing it, and I'm like, wow, this in song. Because the songs I've been used to interacting with have been about love and things going wrong and people cheating and that kind of thing. So actually, for some time now, what I did is I turned to African music. I'll call it African music because it's from the whole continent, and a lot of it. I love Lingala. Lingala is from DRC, Democratic Republic of Congo, and I don't hear Lingala. I don't hear what they say. So not so much the slow ones. Those ones I don't like so much. My favorite artist is Fali Ipupa. I shouted to Fali. He just has a way of singing that's beautiful. He moves in a beautiful way. So I listen to this music, and from the video you can tell, yes, a lot of them have to do with love, but seemingly in a wholesome way, portraying women in wholesome ways. So I love that, and it makes me feel wholesome. And then I decidedly moved away from the music that all these social media channels propose for me, because I want to have a say. I do not want to be doing what everyone else is doing because everyone else is doing it. I want to have this conscious decision that with my awareness, this is where I'm taking it to. My consciousness come, this is what we're looking at. And with that, it's empowering. From there, I do feel that I am in charge of my life, and all these other avenues that try to come and steal my attention, undoubtedly they still do. It's really difficult not to engage with media at all. So yes, undoubtedly there are situations where my attention will be taken away from me, but because I am making the effort, sometimes I notice. I was watching a movie the other day, a movie I thought was going to be great because it has an actress that I really love. I forget her name, and it started off well, but somewhere within the first 10-15 minutes, I realized that there's something about this story that doesn't gel with me. It was about two women, and there was something about their relationship as women friends that was going to come into play. And I thought that I do not want to fill my mind with the notion of women cannot be friends. So I switched it off. And it's one of those that I had paid for. I just switched it off and decided my belief system is more important than whatever money it is that I spent on that movie. And doing that as a practice, it takes a bit of time noticing. As I always say, noticing is the step. Because once you do start noticing that something doesn't feel good for you, whatever it is, whatever source of, whatever kind of media it is, then you can actively disengage from it. And you're an adult. You have the right to decide that I'm not doing this anymore. I don't want this anymore. So even if it's your favorite singer, even if it is your favorite genre of music, even if it's your favorite series, take note. Take the time now to at least engage with it from two minds. Have the mind that is sitting back and enjoying it, but have also the mind that is questioning. What beliefs am I picking up from this? What information is this sending to me? Yep. And raise your vibe. So whenever you do notice that there's something that's bringing you down, find something that works for you. So music absolutely works for me. Dancing works for me. But find something. It could be it I was going to go for a meal. All my examples are on food. It could be a meal that or a snack that raises you up. It could be a scent. You could have a scent that then draws you back. Something something you smell that makes you think, oh, this that raises your vibration. So look for those hacks, things, little things that you can already pre-plan for whenever you notice your vibe is going down through media, because we can't get away from it, but it is our responsibility to note how we engage with it. Yeah. So that was our show for today. As always, I thank you for hanging out with me. You guys are great. I truly appreciate you, and we'll see you next time. Bye bye.